I have never come across a topic in the writing community as divisive as prologues. Every time the topic gets brought up, there is a clear line drawn down the centre of people who love them and people who hate them. As a whole, writers generally seem to enjoy including a prologue, whereas readers mostly will dislike them. So how do you find a happy medium as a writer that wants to write a prologue for readers that actually want to read it? That's what we're going to try and discover today in this video in how to write a good prologue and what makes a great one. So a prologue by definition is a scene that stands outside of the book's structure. It's not chapter 1, it's not the blurb just pasted in the front cover, it is a standalone scene that happens before any of the events in your book. Or it gives a sneak preview into what's going to happen later on in the book, but without context doesn't give anything away. A good prologue is a chance for you as a writer to preview your style to the reader before they become too invested in your characters. This is your chance to show the reader what the rest of the book is going to be, and it gives them an idea of how you communicate as a writer. Whether or not they can connect to this is going to come down to whether they enjoy the rest of your book. The prologue, much like your first page, is your first chance to really hook the reader and reel them into your narrative. As a general rule, a prologue should relate to something that happens in the book or in the series further down the track. I've seen a lot of authors try to use a prologue as just a place to dump information that you should know before you go into the first chapter. That's really not how they should work, and it is the fastest way to throw a reader off, is when you basically hand them a dossier on your world and say you won't understand the book without this information. I would say that a good prologue is short, snappy, and sweet. I want to see what you've got for me in the rest of the book. I want a scene that is really intriguing and gets me really invested straight off the bat. There doesn't have to be any characters in the prologue that continue on through the series, but this is your chance to write a standalone scene, packed full of action if you like, packed full of suspense, introducing your world, that stands alone from the meat of the story. Bring the reader into your world via use of a good prologue. Keep it short. A prologue does not ramble. It is not a tour for the author through their own world. It can be, but delete it when you go to final print. A prologue is your chance as an author to really flex those action muscles. Bring the reader into the story with an inciting incident right off the bat. You don't need to do any of this long setup. We don't need to be invested in the characters. It can be as action heavy as you like. A prologue, though, should relate to the theme that you are going for in your book. Like I said, it is a snapshot of things to come. If you're writing a mystery or a suspense, you want your prologue to be dripping with atmosphere. You want it to open onto the setting where the murders are going to take place or where the serial killer is going to be caught. Take time to dress the set of your book and explore your own world, but keep it short. Readers aren't going to be interested in pages and pages and pages of a scene that ultimately doesn't really come into play right away. It is also going to be very, very jarring for them to get to know the people in your prologue and then jump into chapter 1 with probably your protagonist. A prologue that I read recently was of a book that I did not enjoy, and the prologue was definitely responsible for starting me off on the wrong foot. It was about 4 straight pages of backstory on the setting, and it felt like I was reading page notes for a tabletop RPG. I did not need to know that. I'm not a DM running a game in this world. I should be able to learn this via character exposition. Therefore, I would get to know a character doing the character exposition. Why am I reading just 4 straight pages of backstory with no narrator? It took me out of the story before it even began and became a prime example of how not to do a prologue. If your prologue is literally just backstory delivered by an omniscient narrator, consider ditching it. Have it there for you, put it in your world building notes, but the reader probably doesn't need to know about it unless you can deliver it somewhere naturally in the text through your characters discovering the world or discovering more about the world, or just little tidbits that you can put in here and there. World building is not an info dump. World building is done gradually, brick by brick, as you journey through the world of your book. Prologue should never be used as an excuse to just go, here's world building, blah, there you go. Don't do that, it's going to put a reader off straight away. I would love to see prologues capped out at 1.5 pages. I want a scene lifted straight from the middle of the book. I want it action heavy, dripping with atmosphere. I want it to introduce me to your style as a writer so I know what I'm in for the rest of the ride. I want something that's going to come into play later that adds reread value to the book for me. I want to get to an event in the book and go, oh my gosh, this is what the prologue was hinting at. This is all tying together. This author is a genius and I'm here for it. Use your prologue to its maximum effect by keeping it short, by keeping it sweet. Make every sentence work double for its money. You only have a short amount of time to grab this reader and keep them. The stigma of prologues means that they're going into this thinking, oh great, a prologue. Most of them are probably going to skip it. It's also a good rule of thumb to write a prologue that the rest of the book does not rely heavily on. Assume that people are going to skip it and move on. Especially if you're writing a fantasy, the prologue can be a great place to establish rules, but don't forget to just verify those rules later on if people have chosen to skip the prologue. Use it more as a refresher reminder for the people that did read it. Get the ground rules of your magic system down early, and I know this is going into another topic and we can talk about this a little bit later, but prologues are the perfect place to preview your magic system and the rules that accompany it. While a prologue doesn't generally have to be a scene from the book or series, you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't use it. Like I said before, when people get to that part of the book and they remember what was written in the prologue or information revealed in the prologue, it's going to make them feel like you had this all tied together and that the story was structured properly. In a lot of ways, it's actually easy to talk about what a prologue shouldn't be. So let's make a list of those right now. A prologue should not be a dossier on your world. It should not be written for you to keep notes on your world. It should not be longer than 4 pages at most. And it should not be the blurb just restructured at the front of the book. A prologue should be an opportunity for you to showcase your skills as a writer. It should be a chance for you to hint at what's coming later on in the book. It should be short, snappy, and sweet. A good prologue can make people really, really excited to get into the actual story of your book, and it should not be something dismissed lightly in your writer's toolkit. If you want, go ahead, write a prologue and just indulge in it to your heart's content till the thing's 8 pages long, and then take it out and put it in your scribble pad as we discussed in the last video, and use it as well building notes for you. Go back and write a second scene for the reader who is going to read your book, who is going to read your prologue and be like, I'm into this, I'm here for it, let's get to chapter 1. And in some cases, maybe that's where the book should start. If you write an amazing prologue and everything is just flowing, your first line is good right out of the bat, the first page is so gripping and intense, why isn't that your first chapter? At the end of the day, you're the writer, you make the call. These are just tips to try and help readers stay engaged in your book. I hope this has helped, and trust me, this is not an easy topic to talk on. I would love to discuss it further in the comments, and if you have any queries whatsoever, please email me at reneewrites92@gmail.com. And let's continue this prologue discussion further. Thank you so much for watching and have a good one. Goodbye.